Just a reminder before today's programme that if you missed it, the last episode of the Doctor Who review looking at Can You Hear Me is available to watch now. Also, Doctor Who fans might be interested to know that the latest review of the Blu-ray series The Collection is also available to view, taking a look at the final season for the 7th Doctor and the final season of the classic series, season 26. And now, here on AMTV, a little later than scheduled, it's time now for the Doctor Who review of The Haunting of Villa Diodati. Hi there guys, it's Martyn here. And welcome back to another instalment of the Doctor Who review, a late instalment. I am sorry, but I haven't been in the best of health recently. I'm still not in the best of health. I'm fighting off a really bad head cold at the minute, and also I've just been busy. I've been moving out for starters, and that takes up a lot of time. But here I am to present to you a review of the most recent Doctor Who episode, The Haunting of Villa Diodati. And apologies if you can hear some background noise. I'm not sure if the camera's picking it up, but there is some hoovering going on the floor above me, which is directly above me, so that might transcend through, but don't worry about that, because we're going to talk some Doctor Who. So as usual, I've got all my notes on the episode on my phone. No particular order, we're just going to talk about it. So, first off, this episode had a brilliant atmosphere. It had a very gothic feel to it, you know, that very mid-70s Philip Hinchcliffe era Doctor Who. I love the setting of the early 19th century. I love the house, all the way the candlelight and the colours blended in with each other. That's more of a, I guess, nerdy cinematography thing, but this episode looked absolutely gorgeous, and the cast were great in all the period costumes, and it was just a beautiful, in terms of just how an episode looked, I'd say this has been the best one of the season so far. And there was some unnerving scares in this episode. You know, I think it's harder for Doctor Who or any show these days to be scary just because kids are so desensitized to stuff, but this one actually genuinely made me jump a few times, mainly with the scenes Graham had with the woman and the girl. You know, were they ghosts? Were they part of it? I do like that twist, you know, because you see them through the episode, you think they're partly to do with what's going on, and they sort of leave it saying, oh, well, they could have been ghosts. I mean, it would have been nice to have a bit of resolution, but for what they were, you know, it worked fine. And of course, the big thing I guess I've got to talk about is the lone Cyberman. Now, I wasn't expecting to see the lone Cyberman in this episode. I thought this was just going to be another standalone, you know, early 19th century romp. But, you know, halfway through, we see the lone Cyberman. And first off, I absolutely love the design, that sort of unfinished Cyberman design. It's been teased in Doctor Who a few times, but I feel this is properly elaborated. And the performance of the guy being the lone Cyberman, still having some emotions, was really quite powerful. I'm going to talk about more of those as this video goes on, because there's some really key standout moments for me. But yeah, the whole lone Cyberman thing was wonderfully implemented, so good job to the production team. As I mentioned, they had quite an interesting design, that whole not being quite complete sort of thing. I hope they elaborate on it a bit more and sort of maybe explain why, and are there others like him who aren't quite finished, or is he the only one? I mean, as he's the lone Cyberman, maybe he is the only one, but I'm interested to see what part he plays as the finale kicks off. So I love the scene where the Doctor was explaining her impossible decisions. So this is, I think, down in the basement when they found Shelley, and, you know, it's like, okay, well, either I give up Shelley, or who's historically important, or I give up potentially the whole of Earth and the human race. And how, you know, Ryan at first is like, yeah, Shelley's one man against millions, but then Jodie reminds them that it's a really tough decision, and for her, really quite impossible, because that's the burden the Doctor's gone through all their lives. And I really like to see Jodie get to grips with this deeper stuff and how she sort of snaps back at Ryan for it. And it was one of my favourite, if not the best scene in the entire episode. I just like to see more of Jodie's steel in a way, and I think this series so far, she's really, really been showing it. And I do hope as the finale kicks off especially, that we see even more of this steel in it, maybe cost her or have some sort of consequence. What else do we have? We have the Doctor's warning, how she doesn't want to lose anyone else. This was also a really nice callback. She talks about, you know, what the Cybermen are and how humans basically get twisted until they aren't human anymore, and she's not losing anyone else to that. You could argue that's a callback to a number of things. The most immediate is obviously Bill Potts, who was the Doctor's companion in Series 10 in 2017, and of course in the climax of that, Bill got turned into a Cyberman, and that is a horrific fate for anyone, but to be one of the Doctor's companions, it had real gravitas there. And you could also say to the Cyberman, they killed Adric, man. Back in the 80s, in the 5th Doctor's time, they essentially were responsible for killing Adric. So there's a lot of weight in the relationship between the Doctor and the Cybermen, and I'm glad now we're really starting to explore that almost with the same depth as the Daleks, because one thing I think New Who's done really well most times when we've seen the Daleks is it really undercuts the Doctor's hatred for them, that vitriol, that that pain of them being deadly enemies for centuries. And the Cybermen, they sort of touch on it, but they never quite, and I really want them to start doing that, because they have just as much right to get as much emotional attention as the Daleks do. It also, I think, strengthens the fact of the Doctor's character that this is something she must face alone when she's like, don't follow me. You know, some of these other monsters, or new monsters, or old monsters, one-hit wonders, she's happy to let the companions come along to see them, etc. But this one, it's like, this is one of my deadliest enemies, and you can't follow me. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's too much. Because at the end of the day, she's responsible for those three. So I like that too. There was a brilliant moment with Mary Shelley and the Cyberman. Again, this is in the basement. I believe it's a bit before or a bit after. I think a bit before the Doctor's speech there. So the Cyberman, is obviously after Shelley, and Mary confronts it and basically gets, well, on one hand it's brilliant because you can see her sowing the seeds for the idea of Frankenstein, how she comments, it's a man made of multiple parts and all this sort of stuff. So that's brilliant in itself. But then I also like the sort of little twist we get where she's talking about, oh, did you have any children, anyone you loved? And it looks for a moment that the Cyberman has been beaten, it succumbs to it, it lowers its head, and it does for a moment, it remembers, but then it slowly turns, gripping Shelley, saying, oh yeah, my children, I killed them when they joined the Resistance. That's a heavy line, and especially pre-Watershed, that's a very hard-hitting line, but I thought that whole sequence with the two of them was really well played. Again, probably my second favourite scene in that episode, second to the one I mentioned earlier with the Doctor and her impossible decision. It was a nice climactic moment as well, when the Doctor has the Cyberium for a time and has to decide whether to give it up to the Cyberman or face the Earth being destroyed and ending now in 1816. And you can really quickly see the threat that's there. The Cyberman's not pulling any punches. The Doctor's got an impossible decision and in a way gives the lone Cyberman what it wants, despite Captain Jack's warning a few weeks prior. And if anything, that's really got me hyped up for the finale. That fact, it's one of those great cliffhangers in like a 3-part sequence where the end of the first is the setting up for the devastating effects that are to come. So the lone Cyberman now has the Cyberium. What does this mean? And it's made me really hyped up for the Cyber War as well. The Cyber War's always sort of been mentioned here and there in Doctor Who. It's talked about this and that. But I don't believe we've ever actually seen a full-on Cyber War. So the fact we're going to see that in these last 2 episodes, I'm really excited about. So let's hope they're good. And let's hope next week, Ascension of the Cybermen, which, let's face it, I thought that was a bit lazy, because Ascension, you could argue, also means rise. To rise is to ascend. Ascension of the Cybermen is basically Rise of the Cybermen, which was the title of an episode from 14 years ago. So, but it's not the Cybermen title. I just hope that both these finale parts are wonderful. But that was my review of Haunting of Villa Diodati. You'll have to let me know what you thought of it as well. Did you enjoy it as much as I did? Did you enjoy the setup of it as much as I did? Let me know in the comments below. Like the video as well, and I'll see you next time for the review of Ascension of the Cybermen. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new, and until the next one, I will see you guys next time. Well, that does bring us to a close this evening on AMTV. We do hope you enjoyed the programme, and please do keep your eyes open for brand new content that will be coming to you soon. Until then, have a very good week, and we hope that you join us again soon. Good night.